you're not a famous artist. Gucci never does collabs, and why would they do it? And again, I started this not with the intention to reach the brand. It was really just to bring people's focus into my world as a creative. That's what the punk rock DIY spirit brings.
I'm Justin Jay. As a photographer, I've gotten to shoot rock stars, hip-hop moguls, world-class athletes, and some other truly extraordinary subjects. I'm fascinated by the backstories and life experiences that help shape these compelling people. The right photograph can reveal quite a lot about someone, but some stories can't be told with just a picture. Sometimes you need to sit down, listen, and dig a little deeper. This is The Plug. Today's guest is a multi-talented creator with a solid background in the aesthetics of skateboarding, punk rock, hip-hop, and graffiti culture. A few years ago, he leveraged the ubiquitous Gucci logo and created his own cartoon-inspired character using the opposing capital letter G's as eyes and gave birth to Gucci Ghost. The concept started as a spontaneous Halloween costume, but eventually his iconic ghost motif found on t-shirts, paintings, and tags around New York City cultivated such an avid following that it caught the attention of Gucci. His recontextualized Gucci logo had created an alternate brand with such distinct identity and cachet that instead of issuing a cease and desist order, Gucci instead offered our guest an official collaboration. Since then, he's grown Gucci Ghost into a prolific creative enterprise, culminating with an impeccably timed NFT drop in 2021 that generated several $1 million in sales in one evening. So how do you collaborate with one of the most established luxury brands in the world without diluting the immediacy and the disruptive nature of a DIY graffiti-inspired ethos? We'll find out as we sit down for a conversation with this logo co-opting rebel. Today, musician, artist, father, and the mad genius behind Gucci Ghost, Mr. Trevor Andrew. Trevor Andrew, good to see you, man. Thanks for taking time out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
From the looks of Instagram, looks like you've been having a pretty good season lately. It's been good so far?
Yeah, I've been getting up riding. That like last season, I really got back into the mountains when I was up in British Columbia for 7 months with my family, and I just really reconnected with riding and just going out on those backcountry missions and just getting up riding in general. Because I was living in New York for 16 years, and I would maybe get a trip here and there, a few days a season. But the past 2 seasons, I've been really going after it. And this year, I already went up to BC for a little bit, got some early season good POW locally, and then I've been going up riding just in the daytimes for a couple hours, as a part of my routine these days. So it's great because it gives me space to find more creative inspiration. It's crazy how many ideas I came up with last year just being in the mountains. It was wild.
So you and I met originally a couple years ago. I was working for Nixon. I was going to take some pictures of you and your wife, Santigold. And we got to shoot inside your brownstone in Brooklyn. And it was this really amazing, eclectic home you guys had. But the surrounding neighborhood, maybe a little rough around the edges, and unmistakably Brooklyn, New York. You guys recently moved to California, you mentioned. As a father, as a snowboarder, as an artist, was that a drastic transition for you? I mean, did it take a little adapting? How's that been working out? You happy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like I'm always been moving through my life. I've lived so many different places, and I love change, and definitely miss New York. And it became a lot harder because we did this kind of a little bit before the pandemic. So then it became coming out to the West Coast and then not going out, so it was definitely a drastic change in that way. But people always ask me, you like it better in Cali? I just like it different. I find beauty in all the places that I go. I'm always looking for that. So, and change and new environments always brings that excitement. Yeah, it's been great, man.
I mean, you got a lot of different creative pursuits. You snowboard, obviously. You do music. You have a Gucci Ghost project. You're a father as well. Has some of your success over the past year kind of given you the luxury to be able to set your own time frame for what you want to do, or is your life still pretty regimented? Like, walk me through an average day or a week in your life.
Well, I mean, I guess I've been really fortunate throughout my life to find ways to just be creative and survive and provide. And like, I didn't really have a concept of time before I had children, but it's kind of the same for me, aside from like getting up and getting the kids ready and doing that part of my life. I think I've been really lucky that I've had the confidence to do that. And so I've had good fortune with that, just because there's no like plan B. It's like just, exposing my kids to all the stuff that has brought me so much happiness in my life, but it's rad to just, as a parent, like expose my kids to everything that makes me so happy and share that.
Well, so, I mean, speaking of artwork, and I know you've probably spoken about this a lot, but I really want to get into it because it's such an interesting story. Talk to me about your experience creating Gucci Ghost, and then also your experience working with Gucci, the brand. Because as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, you essentially dared them to send you a cease and desist or to do a proper collaboration with you, and they opted for the latter. Like, how did that come about? Why did you think they made that choice?
I think it was just like really the stars aligning, to be honest. And yes, it was somewhat of a very just to the universe, I guess, just saying, yeah, I'm going to do this till they sue me or hire me type of thing, But that wasn't my initial intention. My initial intention wasn't even to like reach the brand. My initial intention was to extract some, power and something familiar from the brand, reinterpret it, apply it to like the medium that I was working on and trying to bring focus in. Like really the first Gucci Ghost project was a record. I made a record and I was like, yo, this is kind of a different sound. Like I'm going to put this out under Gucci Ghost. And like, cause Gucci Ghost just came, a few months earlier by me. I was DJing a party for my friend. He brought me to the Philippines to play this opening, and I went over there and I was flying home and I went to the market and found some like bootleg Gucci fabric, and I brought it home because I was always into that. Like when I would go to New York, I'd go to Canal Street. Like I wasn't going to the Gucci store. I was going to Canal and like getting that stuff and getting like, fake Jordans and like mixtapes. And so yeah, I came home. It was Halloween. I didn't have a costume. Boom, chopped the eye hole, skated around New York. And just so happens I ran into an old friend, Ari Markopoulos, who's a photographer. Ari Markopoulos is like an amazing photographer that I met when I was really young snowboarding. He was like coming on trips with Terry Hawkinson, shooting him. And I ran into him at a party. I hadn't seen him in like 10 years. I've been living in Brooklyn and he had been living in Brooklyn, and I was at this party with the Gucci Ghost sheet on, and I like pull it up like, yo, it's Trev, and we reconnected. He came to the studio and was shooting photos and hanging out and coming over to the house. And then he got commissioned by Gucci to shoot their lookbook. So at that time, Alessandro had just gotten his position there, and he was like, yo, have you ever heard of Gucci Ghost? This is my friend. I'm like jumping all over the story here. It's like
well, I guess my question is like, I'm really curious about what do you think their impression was, or why do you think they ultimately said yes? Because that's a brand that's been traditionally very well protected. And I'm wondering, was there an element of like the Barbara Streisand effect? Are you familiar with that? Where she tried to sue Google to have her property taken off the Google Maps in Malibu. And it got so much press that it ended up making more people aware of it than they ever would have otherwise. Like, was there an element of that with Gucci, you think? Or what do you think their mindset was to go ahead and say yes?
Well, I think once Alessandro had heard about it and saw the work and saw the stuff that I was doing in the street and saw the clothing and saw the music and the films and the whole body of work, really, I think that he was fearless and he said, this would be dope. Like, this would be, he said exactly what I thought when everyone was like, oh, Gucci will never fuck with you. Like, you're not a famous artist. You're not, they don't do collabs, like Gucci never does collabs. And why would they do it? And again, I started this not with the intention to reach the brand. It was really just to bring people's focus into my world as a creative. But I think what I was putting out into the universe was so authentic and really true to the spirit of just loving the creative process that, like, when Alessandro saw it, he was like, damn, this is dope. We got to do this. And I, at a certain point, once I started, being a couple years deep into the project and having worked Gucci Ghost as a theme through so many different mediums, it was like, I saw it too. I was like, yo, like, it would just take the right person to understand this. Why wouldn't they do this? Like, Gucci needs to do this, It
was just it's a brave choice.
And it was, obviously successful because it was something that authentically, like, connected with people and a younger audience and just a broader group. And it was just fun, and that's what I realized, like, without even intending to initially. It was just the way I was doing this, and I was stripping it down and, like, putting it out, like, almost in a more, the logo even just as a more raw, but just less perfect, perfectly imperfect,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it was just they were like, yo, why, he saw it was an offering, really.
It's interesting because, you have such a close connection to punk rock and hip hop, skateboarding, obviously snowboarding. But even though all of those things have kind of become mainstream, like, cornerstones of pop culture, like, at their core, they really were founded on ideals of, like, rebelliousness and individuality and, like, this ethos of, like, DIY. And, like, at face value, it might seem kind of antithetical to those cultures to, like, do a collab with, like, a high-end luxury brand. But the way you did it, like, it felt really authentic and it felt organic and people really responded positively to it. Were you surprised by that, or would you have done anything differently if you had a chance to do it again?
No, I mean, again, like, that work was done, a lot of it, like the first collection before it went to Rome, like, those things were done 3 years prior, like, with no intention other than just to make something dope, So, like, it made sense that people felt it. And I think the brands, obviously we're in a time where now it's really become almost a blueprint. It's like, you can go out and troll a brand till they notice you, essentially. And if your idea is good enough and resonates with the brand, like, you can make those connections. Whereas, like, I think that's what the punk rock DIY spirit brings, is like a whole new way to approach creating with a brand and creating a product. You don't have to go through these steps or, like, a certain process or structure that's been formed. But
so you had a really successful NFT drop last year on Nifty Gateway. And I actually bid on one of the pieces, like the silver animated ghost token was so fucking dope. I didn't get it, but I did watch, in a span of about 45 minutes, I watched you sell north of $1 million worth of artwork. I was blown away. Walk me through that evening. I mean, did you have any idea of the reception that drop was going to get? I mean, was that a life-changing evening for you? Did you expect it to go down that way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, NFTs, to me, like, again, another thing that I found good fortune in because of the moment of my intention with it, which I think was, I'd known about. I was really lucky to be, the Winklevoss twins reached out to me 3 years ago or something at this point, and, like, they were telling me about that they were launching this platform, this NFT platform. And, like, at the time, like, nobody on my team, including myself, had, like, heard of an NFT. But from what they explained to me, it just seemed to really, it made sense in the way that, like, I was like, oh, this is just another way for me to, like, connect with my art to another audience and just take it on another medium, just like making films or making music or making clothes or paintings or whatever it is that I'm doing. Like, it just seemed like another medium that I could translate my artistic vision and play within it. And I really saw it as almost like just like a social media at the time. Like I was like, this is almost like just like a new way. I just believed that in trying to create something for just the intention to create it and share it. And I didn't go into it like, hey, I want to make all this money doing it. Obviously was grateful to have that moment, but it was, I think that I find those moments because I look for the real moment of just loving what I'm doing, like the creative process. And I think that always attracts great things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the nature of the technology is it's so immediate. And so, walk me through watching those numbers, watching those actual sales in that like extremely short amount of time. I mean, what was going on in your mind that night?
It was wild. Yeah. I mean, I had no clue. I started making my NFTs a little bit late, even though it was really early. It was like November. I was already working on one for like a year previous that was like the technology didn't even exist at the time. Everybody at Nifty Gateway was like, yo, just like, it doesn't have to be like, just let's drop some shit, And so I did my first drop and it made some money. And I was like, oh, this is rad. And it was connecting. That was the thing. It was like I saw how like there was just people that never had heard of the art really that were connecting with it. And, some old people, some new people. And when March rolled around and I remember going down to the river in the morning and like being excited for it and being like on Instagram and Twitter and it was rad. It was
what did you do to celebrate that night after the drop ended?
I actually went to bed early because I remember getting up to go and I was like riding PAL the next day. And it was such a great balance for that moment for sure. And just, it was wonderful.
The whole NFT space is so fascinating. And it seems like you could break it down into two different parts. There's the technology aspect of it, which under the hood, I'm sure is very complicated. But from an end user standpoint, you're basically getting a receipt, if you will, for like an asset, in this case, a piece of digital artwork. And there's nodes all over the world. Whenever there's a transaction, those nodes record it, and then therefore it's open source, unhackable, verifiable. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it. But what really fascinates me is the psychological aspect of it, because you have, say, 1 million versions of something or an infinite number of something. And collectively, the marketplace has agreed that this specific version or these small numbers of specific versions are the ones that are actually going to be valuable. And that kind of fractures our traditional concepts of scarcity and abundance and value. It's really strange. Like as an artist, did you get that right away, or did it take you a minute to kind of wrap your head around things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was really lucky also in the beginning to have, I would say in March, it was like a whole wider range of people, but I think like my first drop, like pretty much everyone was holding. So it felt the same to me as like being in traditional spaces, like selling paintings, like pretty much like 90-something% of the people that would buy a painting from me, they just buy it because they love it and they want it and they have it in their home. But just to see like how, with NFT, it's like people are definitely, and not to say that doesn't exist in the traditional art world. I think it just things happen so much faster within this space. So like that's kind of a trip to see, and understanding that. But that's also like allowed me to be creative too, to think about ways to be creative in a different way because you're playing a different type of game, So it's really fun, and I'm really kind of like deep in it, and I've been working on something that's really, it's a year-long project that is really like a 10-year-long project, but I've spent the past year like really building this one of one that I believe is there's nothing like it.
Well, I guess you could break down the two main arguments as this. Like some people would argue, well, why would I pay $1,000 or $1 million for a Gucci Ghost or a Bored Ape or whatever when you can literally just screen grab it and have the exact same thing for free? And I think the counter argument to that would be, yeah, absolutely, go and do that. Because if you post that on social media and you put it on t-shirts and you put it out there in the world, the more pervasive that artwork becomes, the more my verifiably, quote unquote, authentic version of that piece becomes more valuable. But that's a really strange leap. What are your thoughts on that?
But it's just about ownership, because you can go into a museum and take a photo of a Picasso on the wall. You don't own that Picasso. You have a photo of a Picasso.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The difference obviously is that you own that piece, right? So yeah, it's not really about, it's like you said, it's not entirely about just like the image. There's something else that goes along with that, obviously. And, you know, to own a painting and have it in your house and it's there and it's yours to, it's a different connection to it, I think. And so I guess that's what we're dealing with, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a unique space because, you know, I've been talking to a lot of photographers trying to figure out an organic way to make photography work in the NFT space. And like, it doesn't seem to work. I feel like the drops that have been most successful are the ones that exist only in a digital environment. Like the coin, the Gucci Ghost coin that you did that was animated, like it was so cool and it obviously looked real, but it doesn't exist anywhere else except for digitally. And I think that's a big leap for a lot of people to try and make.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, that's a theme that's often brought up is well, I think that this is we're going to see so much change and so much more space for new things that like, I believe NFT will have a part in not just all creative mediums, but businesses, brands, like it's just, but the conversation of physical and digital is interesting because people have different relationships with that. A lot of people that collect my NFTs, they don't care about having a physical object, but then there are some that are more into, they've discovered NFT in a different way, and they associate things with physical. So they're like, some people want something physical that accompanies that, but it really, to me, they don't have to coexist at all. You know, they're not, it doesn't take a physical item to validate or make a digital asset valuable. You know what I mean? It almost sometimes can devalue because you're cluttering the issue of where the truth lies.
That's what I wanted to get your opinion on that, because I know a lot of people sometimes they'll offer an NFT, a digital asset that also comes with like a physical painting or a physical asset as well. And I'm curious about your thoughts on that, because me personally, it seems like you're almost working against yourself in terms of training the marketplace to accept that they're buying something that exists only digitally. It's almost as if, like when you're learning a language, if you see a dog, you can't think, okay, dog in Spanish means perro. You have to look at that animal and think perro, and you have to like live inside that realm. And then also, I think it takes this hyper efficient, instant, worldwide digital transaction, and then creates this bottleneck where you're like, now you're physically going to the post office to like mail some shit with your NFT. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think in time, I think the most of the community that's there that understand NFT, they get that concept and they're thinking NFT and they understand the value that lies without the physical. There is some fun ways, I believe, and I believe that there is a place for that digital physical thing, and that's okay. You know, I think that there will be that, but it is almost like, it almost feels to me like it is like that transitional, like training wheels for people, but yeah, it just depends how creative, like there are creative ways that you can do it. And, you know, I've played with it for sure. Like I did a burn that was offering people a physical print in exchange for their digital asset for me to destroy. And it was surprising to see like where it just showed me who was kind of new to NFT maybe, or just, that's not necessarily true. I guess it can, I think it may always exist, but it doesn't have to, you know, it doesn't have to like at all.
Well, you've had some successful NFT drops, but you've also had some really successful physical gallery openings as well. Like, is there a difference in your approach to how you either market it or create that artwork, like for a physical space versus NFT? Like, you know, doing an NFT drop with a purely digital piece of artwork versus a limited edition screen print from a show?
I think to me, it's the same thing. Again, it's the same energy, and I don't really. Yeah, of course, like building a space is putting together a whole body of work, and a show is usually a little more like you're dealing with mainly like one of ones or small additions, like whereas obviously it'd be more like my prints, my physical prints that I sell. It's more because you're doing like a little bit larger numbers, and I haven't done like just a solely like a one of one only drop or like, but I think it's the same energy that goes into just everything I'm doing, whether it's music, NFT, painting, doing a show, creating like it's just being in the moment and trying to like share some story,
It seemed like there was a time in the NFT space, it almost seemed maybe about 12, 15 months ago, when there was this, I would call it almost like a gold rush, and the market was just not behaving rationally. You'd have people, you could actually almost mint some random digital piece of artwork that you created, mint it on OpenSea, and in some cases sell it for a lot of money. I think that ship has sailed for the most part. I mean, obviously there's your work and there's people and everything in between, but I think many people are learning the hard way that, the NFT technology, it's not a magic tool. I mean, and what they're finding is that trying to sell artwork online, you're going to run up against the obstacles that you would run selling traditional artwork in a physical space in terms of context. Where are you showing? Either what platform or what gallery? Where did this work show before? What's the artist done before? And then also just promotion, like how do you get the word out, And I think a lot of people a while back would look at what you did and said, oh shit, I could do that, or I should do that. When the fact of the matter is, like, your drop was so successful because you'd already curated a really loyal following in like the real world space. And all it really did was allow people who may otherwise not have gone into a gallery to purchase your work, but a hyper efficient way for them to stay at home and invest in your artwork. Like, you think that's a fair assessment?
For sure. To last in any space, you've got it. It goes back to your intentions, and you'll hit a roof pretty quickly without really living it and diving into whatever it is that you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. It's like you can only go so far. So yeah, I think we're seeing that, but I do believe that what NFT showed the world is that there's just a great big space to, and it's not only, I don't think it's just about like, we started out, you see how it's like growing and how, because of the capabilities now, like the ideas that the creative is twisting and turning and growing and progressing. And there'll be spaces, I feel like there'll be lots of like photography and all these things that maybe not be like hitting right now. It's like, I believe that there will be scenes within this. This is just the infancy stage of NFT. I believe that it's going to be so. People, when they first jumped in and everyone was like, yeah, I'm going to do an NFT. It was like the most buzzworthy term, like Web3, It's like everybody's saying these things, It's like, it does show that there is great opportunity to be creative and try to, and I would be happy to inspire.
Well, what do you think? What was the most valuable lesson, or what was the most important piece of knowledge that you brought to the table as an artist operating in the physical world when you did your NFT drop?
I think for me, it's just, I've never been afraid to like go outside of, like, if I'm finding success in one thing, it doesn't mean that I have to, like, I'll be like, okay, I'm only making clothes. Like, I've always just tried to find different ways to translate my creative vision. So I think my willingness just to try new things, whereas like I even reached out to a lot of artists in that early time of me starting to really understand what NFT was and the potential of it and really the future. I was like, this is a part of the future. It's not more important than physical art, but it's not less important. It's equally as important to me. And it always has been, because I feel like I've always taken my physical works and taken photos of them and then shared them. There's always this digital kind of marriage with the physical work in these days anyway. So I was reaching out to a lot of people early and people didn't want to do it because they felt that it might be just a fad or something, you know what I mean? So like, for me, I'm always fearless when it comes to just trying new things because it's exciting to me. And, it just keeps things fresh to me, going from one thing to another and finding out what I really truly enjoy to do, the most. And
yeah, it seems really ironic to me in a way that the non-fungible token and how the majority of people in the world first learned about that is through the prism of digital artwork. Because it seems like that almost happened by accident. You know what I mean? Like the technology wasn't created to sell CryptoKitties. You know what I mean? Like the ERC 721 smart contract is going to have insane implications moving forward on real estate transactions and health records and insurance settlement and like all these kind of world-changing things. And it seems like it almost happened by accident that people started using it for these like silly little things that they sell online for Ethereum. And that's how people found out about it. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was accidental or whatever, but I think that it makes sense. It makes sense. It could have gone either way, but it makes sense to go with art. I mean, that's how we look at everything in the world that we're trying to put value to is we put art with it. There's some kind of artistic vision that goes along with that. So
yeah, it seems almost like the application of NFT technology for creating and selling and making a marketplace for digital artwork. There's almost some parallels of people using a turntable to create music, to make as an instrument rather than what it was really designed for. I mean, right. It's like really interesting, kind of a good analogy.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
I mean, where do you think we are in terms of NFTs, in terms of art? Because it seems like we're almost both like too early and too late at the same time, like too late in terms of what we talked about before, where the average person being able to just like put some random shit on OpenSea and like actually make money out of it. And it's almost too early for like the blue chip, like true art market to, really adopt it. Like, what do you think about that?
I don't really, I guess it's something that I don't really think about. I'm just in my self-centered world of trying to figure out the best that most creative way to apply my art to the medium of NFT. So like I'm in the zone right now of like working on really just completing, finishing this project that I've just been so deep on. That's really pushed me to it's just a totally different thing. It is very in line with the origins and that the process, the natural process that I would create in the physical world, but just to really spend that amount of time and work with like a development team and squad up.
I mean, in a way, it makes sense that you don't kind of waste your time pontificating about the future of NFTs. I mean, you're a really busy guy and you're a really prolific artist. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense that you just kind of put your head to the grindstone and make art and let other people kind of figure out where it lands and how much it's worth.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, that's exactly it. That's what I spend my time doing. It's just searching for that exciting moment and that feeling of, having a picture and or an idea and producing it or finding a way to get it made or like just, that's my mission. As far as, the future of art world, period, time will reveal. Otherwise I would be so deep down that rabbit hole of obsession on it's like
you would dilute your creativity trying to reverse engineer what you should make or how it's going to sell or what's going to work next.
Yeah, but that being said, I also still try to think down the line about like how I could think of something or create something that is truly progressive, Like I feel like that's what I really learned out of skateboarding and snowboarding was just like that spark for like always looking and seeing like something in front of my eyes, like rapidly progress so fast in my lifetime. That's what I connect with NFT is that it's rapidly progressing and growing. And that's a parallel that I get from like skateboarding. You know what I mean? It's exciting, so I'm thinking like, how can I push this forward? How can I go the biggest?
And it's a medium, the NFT medium is one that like your involvement and the work that you've done will have an effect on how other people see it in the future as a result. I mean, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm just here to try to make my mark,
Well, listen, we always like to end the podcast by asking the guests to kind of pay it forward and plug a project that they're not directly involved in, like whether it's a book or a movie or another artist or a social cause. Like, do you have anything you want to give some shine to that you feel isn't getting enough attention?
Sure. I mean, there's so much shit that I'm excited about right now. In the music space, there's some stuff coming out right now that I really been getting into, and there's a band called Black Marble. They've been around for a couple years, but like definitely I actually had them play my first opening in New York City. Like, big fan. I feel like they're top notch, you know. Alex Sucks is a great artist. David Sebastian, Jalil Nzinga.
I have my internet searching cut out for me later on tonight. definitely check those out. But first, I'm gonna check on Black Marble first. That's a great shout out.
Oh yeah, just playing the record just before we started. It's like definitely one of my top 10 of newer bands for sure.
Cool. Well, Trev, I really appreciate what you do. I'm a big fan. I'm glad that we finally got to cross paths again after all these years. I know it took a couple false starts, but I appreciate you sitting down, man. I know you're a busy dude.
No, I appreciate you having me, for real, man. It's good to reconnect.
Cool. And we'll do, I put a book out last year of 10 years of surf culture on the North Shore of Hawaii. So I'd love to do some sort of a trade with you. So let's keep in touch for that.
Yeah, let's get it. I'm down. That'd be sick.
Is there anything you want to plug real quick that you are involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a new collection right now for my brand Real Buy. That's been really fun to kind of dig back into that space. And I've got a couple new music projects actually in the works. I have a country record that's been done for some time now, and I'm just like throwing things at the wall.
Good. Well, I think a lot of it's sticking because you're doing a lot of cool shit. So keep at it. Best of luck with dad life, and hopefully we'll see you soon, man. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, man. All right. Take care.
Cheers. Thanks for listening, and a huge thanks to today's guest for dropping in. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor and take a minute to rate, review, follow, or subscribe. This episode of The Plug was executive produced by Ryan Bucci and Peter Buckingham. Theme music by Andrew Van Weingarten and Dan Drohan, with sound design by Brad Worrell at Soundwag. Thanks again, and be sure to tune in for future conversations.